YouTube, Louie here, and welcome to the weekend. Today I want to explore what it would take to put aside $500,000 in precious metals. Okay, sound crazy? Maybe it is, but if you set your mind to it, you might be able to accomplish it. And not everyone can. Of course, you have to have disposable income. But let's start out by talking about how much available money we have to purchase precious metals. And for this example, I'll be doing gold and silver at the current market prices. All right, well, we know if you want to get ahead, you really have to cut up those credit cards. All right, so going into this, let's say that you have extinguished your credit card debt and you actually have some available cash at the end of the month. But that's not the only thing. How much available cash do you have? All right. Well, there's your income, which of course we can always try to improve by improving ourselves, going to school, getting a new profession, training in some new field, getting a side gig. But there's also your expenses. And I would argue, and have made all these mistakes myself, that our expenses could always be trimmed. So I guess that would be the first question is, how bad do you want it? How badly do you want to get out of the current economic system, the current failing fiat currency, and how badly do you want to put aside a nest egg that will create a legacy for you and for, future generations? And if that sounds interesting to you, let's keep going. So I might ask you a couple of things. How much debt do you have aside from your credit cards, which obviously those are always a bad idea, and you really should not be stacking if you have credit card debt that you cannot pay off. But what about your car payment? I'm seeing more and more stories of $500, $700, $1,200 car payments. And if you fall into that category, again, how much do you want to invest in your image versus how much do you want to invest in your future? And I would argue that you really ought to keep your transportation needs and your transportation expense down to a bare minimum. And again, having made all the mistakes and tried to correct them over time, that fancy car that you have, that huge car payment, it really wears off over time. And as you garner more and more responsibilities, a spouse, children, the desire to buy a house, the little things that you put money into can really detract you from your ultimate goal. In other words, you're sacrificing tomorrow for today. So let's take a look at those car payments. Let's take a look at how many cars we have and what they're costing us. And possibly, again, if you really, really want it, you could take that $700 and convert that down to something much more reasonable if you're only interested in transportation. And then there's the subscriptions. I mean, endless subscriptions to everything from HBO to the latest iPhone charges to book club of the month. I mean, whatever it is, if you go through your expenses, you will find the little vampires in there that are sucking away little bits of your money. Even a $50 a month subscription, could get you 2 ounces of silver. And do you really need it? Do you need HBO, Showtime, Hulu, Prime, etc., etc.? Do you need Costco? And I do think we save money there. But, when you walk in there, do you blow your wad on the latest flat screen TV, etc.? So I would also encourage all of us to take a look at our expenses and make a budget, make every dollar in that budget work for you, and see what you have left over. Of course, there's ways to save on food, and of course, you don't want to be going out. Again, this all goes back to how badly do you want it? All right, I'll stop preaching because, as I said, I've made every mistake in the book from an expensive car to a very expensive home. And you know what? They've always turned out badly. And I was lucky enough to have the income to overcome those blunders. But whether it's the new BMW sitting in your parking lot or the McMansion that you bought to impress your friends, where the mortgage is way too high, think about the future and think about who gives a damn to who you should impress. Nobody gives a damn. The older you get, you find out that the only person that really cares about you is you, and the only person you can ever impress is yourself, and be proud of yourself. So I do think expenses have a lot to do with how much residual income you have. All right, I've lingered on that long enough. Number two, emergency fund. You have to have an emergency fund. I would say, at least 3 months of living expenses and possibly something if your car breaks down. All right, so there's the emergency fund. I would think that would have to be $3,000 to $5,000 or it wouldn't be very useful. Now, what is the goal? All right, in this crazy video, which hopefully isn't a waste of time, let's say that you want to accumulate $500,000 in silver and gold over time. Well, there's only one way to accomplish a goal, and that's to break it into smaller chunks and see what it would take to actually get there. Not just talk about it, not just dream about it, but to actually do it. And that's what I'm going to do here in terms of the timeline. So if your goal is $250,000 silver and $250,000 gold, and I recommend that you stack both, and I won't get into the argument of which is better and why, but I do play the GSR, and I do think you can use these two metals against each other to augment your stacking. But let's say that that's what you want to do over a 10-year period. I've been stacking for just about 10 years, and I have to tell you it goes really, really fast. And I also have to tell you the time to stack hard is when you're earning hard. If you're in your 40s, mid 40s, 50, you're at peak earning potential, that's the time to stack hard. When you're really young, it's very hard to get the money together. And as you're older, it is very hard to take that money out of your retirement fund and put it into silver and gold because you have locked it up in some way. So if you're in the prime earning years, I would say that would be the prime stacking years. All right, what is silver? I think it's about 24, 25, something like that. Gold, I think, has made an excellent run. Remember when I said, gold is intrinsically more valuable than silver when the ratio was down at 75 to 1? Well, we hit 80 to 1 recently, and you see why. Silver is holding its own, still bouncing up against resistance there at 24.50, but gold has broken out. And again, I still expect that pullback, but that's not what this video is about. If you want to get into silver and gold and you want to start stacking, let's just put in the ounces. So I'm going to do the math here. Let's see if I can get a calculator to come up. There's a calculator in the wrong place. So if you want $250,000 divided by, I'm going to give you a $2 premium. I don't think you should stack anything other than generic. Generic silver, generic gold. It is what is, that's pure stacking. Stay away from the collectible coins, stay away from the high premium stuff. If you have to have sovereign silver and gold, I'll give you that. But I don't feel I do. I don't live in a place where it's required, and I'm not worried about the taxes. So I'm going to go with generic. But let's pay $26.25. So divided by 26.25, and lots of $1.99 premiums showing up all over because silver is toppy here, in my opinion. That equals 9,523 ounces. Okay, let's call that 9,500 ounces. Sound impossible? Well, I know there are some people watching me right now that have that much. And if they want to share their experience as to how they got there, I'd love to hear about it. Okay, 1920 gold, which is getting high. I mean, it seems like gold is making a run to 2000. But let's do $250,000 divided by 1920. And let's get a number. This is going to be crazy. 130 ounces. Ouch. Could you ever save 130 ounces of gold? Well, I know people that have 20. I know people that have 50. I know people that have even more than that. But that's hard. I mean, that is overwhelming. You know, isn't it funny psychologically how you could see yourself, or at least I could see myself, and have stacked silver more easily than gold? Isn't that funny that, you know, you look at that silver number of 9,500 ounces, and for those of you that have a few thousand ounces already, you probably think, you know, I could probably do that. But you look at that number of 130 ounces of gold, and you probably think, like I do, man, I'm just never going to get there. But let's see what it would take to get there. Okay, so I'm just going to take a leap here and say that prices are at a high for today, and it is very possible that they are the same price for 10 years. Why do I say that? Because that's what happened to me. I started stacking about 10 years ago when silver was in, I won't do the gold equivalent because I don't remember it, but silver was in the high teens, and then it went down to the 14s, and then it went up to the 18s, and then it went down to the 15s, and then it finally popped up a little bit. But in that 15 to 20 range, that was 10 years for me, and I accumulated a nice stack as a result. Now we're at 24, 25, or in the 20 to 25 zone, which is a substantial increase over the 15 to 20 zone. So I'm just going to assume it stays at that price for 10 years. I know it's probably not likely, but I have to use a number here. So I'm going to do that. How long would it take to accumulate 9,500 ounces of silver if you don't have any, or $250,000? Well, we're going to divide that by 120 months. So let's get the calculator out again and say $250,000 divided by 120 months. And man, it goes fast. All right, so you would have to buy 2,000 ounces of silver. I'm sorry, you'd have to spend $2,000 for silver and, of course, $2,000 gold. All right, so that would be a $4,000 per month investment. And if the price stayed the same, in the high 24s or in the 24s or in the 1920s or anywhere between 20 and 30 and you average 24, or anywhere between 1800 and 2000 and you average 1920, because metals don't just go up, they also go down, and we have a recession pending, in my opinion, a deep recession, I think. So let's just say that you are able to put aside $4,000 a month. All right, now that's a pretty hefty number, and most people probably can't do that. But you know what? If you wanted to revise this assumption here and not go for the $500,000, you could. You could shoot for $250,000. But there's something that that I think will happen over time, which is what has happened with my stack, and that is appreciation. Okay, this is if you don't sell it, right? But, you know, appreciation for silver and gold is, and now I'm going to suspend disbelief again, and let's say you're in year 11, and silver has finally broken out into the 35, okay, could easily be 35. You could see your 9,500 ounces be worth 9,500 times 35. Let's assume no premiums. You get spot when you sell it. $332,000. Okay, and we could see your gold. What's a reasonable number for gold? Well, I think we could do something similar. I think we could easily get up to 3,000 or 3,500 on gold. So you could see your 130 ounces of gold, 130 times, I'm going to use 3,500 because gold is stronger than silver in my opinion, and in the long term always will be. 455,000 for gold. Okay, that's gold, and this is silver. I think it is reasonable, although I've assumed no appreciation during the stacking period, which is pretty much what happened to me. And then there are those false starts like the silver squeeze a year or two ago, where we all bought overpriced silver and it raised the cost per ounce of our stack. So there's going to be some mistakes in here as well. But, I could see silver going from $250,000 at the end of 10 years up to $332,000. I could see gold going from $250,000 to $455,000. Well, now you're pushing $800,000 of value. And granted, you're beyond year 10, maybe year 11, maybe year 12, maybe year 15. And maybe, just maybe, you hit the lottery and we go into hyperinflation, which nobody wants. Believe me, you don't want that. But this, pretty close to $1 million multiplies into several million dollars. Of course, that won't buy what it used to, but it would keep you even. So there is the calculation, and it starts with $4,000 a month. What would it take to get $4,000 a month? Well, there are side gigs, there's extra income that you could always pursue. I mean, how hard would it be to make an extra 1,000 or 2,000 a month if you really put your mind to it? There's overtime on your job, and I can't think of a better goal for that money than to invest in the stability of precious metals. There, of course, as we talked about, are expenses that we can always cut down. And if you're married or you have a partner and you're moving in the same direction rather than different directions, I think that you can also, squeeze some money out of that budget. I don't think it would be out of the question for, the median family to try to put aside at least a couple thousand more if you were serious about it. And if you were, the payoff could be $500,000. It could be $1 million. Now you might say, well, what about the stock market? The stock market is the most proven generator of wealth ever in our country. And, that's going to do better than this. But while I do believe in diversification into stocks, I actually think precious metals are going to do better over the next 10 years. I think we're going to go into a very stagnant time. I think we're going to look a lot more like Japan than we do, the United States of the 1980s. And I think, I think those returns are going to be muted in the stock market. I also think we're going to probably take a 50% haircut from where we're at. So if you start from 50% down, and my money is not in stocks right now. My 401k is in short-term treasuries, earning 4 to 4.5%. And I know a lot of people think that's crazy to be in treasuries, but I think a lot more crazy to be in the bank, right? Or in a CD where they're going to do a bail-in. And even more crazy to be in stocks at this time. If the market heads down 50%, you buy back in. Yeah, I think that would probably do better than metals over time. But if you take a 50% haircut, and I know some of you are already down 25%, I mean, a lot of people are. If you take a 50% haircut, it's going to take, a long time to get back up, and we just might not have that V bottom that everybody is used to. So, will precious metals exceed the stock market over the next 15 years? Um, I think very possibly. I think very possibly. Are precious metals protection against Armageddon? Absolutely. Are precious metals a lottery ticket on hyperinflation? Yeah, that's guaranteed that if the currency goes to hell, the people are going to want silver and gold to feed their families. So you've got like two and a half ups to a half a thumb down. And these goals may be outsized for you, but you can adjust them accordingly. And how about getting serious about how much you buy every month and what your goal is at the end of a 10-year period? All right, I'd love to hear your thoughts, your success stories, how you've cut expenses, how you've gotten extra income, what you're doing with your money, how you're stacking, how far you are on your goal to 9,500 ounces of silver. I'm afraid I'll never get there. I'll never get there, and I'll never get to 130 ounces of gold because, like I said, when I was in my prime earning years and my wife was in her prime earning years, we threw a lot of money away. We just threw it away, and it all seemed like the money would last forever. And that next house or that next car, we could always make it up. But there's a point where you get to the end of your career and you don't have the earning potential anymore. And you know what? Your only stacking is going to come from extra gigs that you pick up. Like I have an eBay store and that provides income, or it's going to come from cutting expenses or trading silver and gold ratios, which I do. So I will continue to rejigger the gold to silver balance, taking advantage of the gold silver ratio. That's why I love generic and I hate sovereign, and I certainly hate eagles and so forth with those premiums. But that's it. I'm pretty much done accumulating because I'm past my prime earning years, and I have to have a 401k that'll throw off income. And I don't plan on selling my silver at 25, and I don't plan at selling my gold at 19.20. But I will certainly take a look at 35, 40, or $50 on silver, and I will certainly take a look at 3,000, 3,500 on gold. But the purpose of my stack is not so much to generate income. It's more of a safety net, and it's more of playing the odds that I can increase my net wealth and protect my net wealth. All right, again, I'd love to hear your personal story down below, and how crazy was this, huh? All right, guys, this is Louie signing out, and I will see you all next week.